This is a 2016 Toyota Prius, and today I'm replacing a worn front wheel bearing. With the car pulled in and safely supported on jack stands, I remove the wheel and set it aside, so I have full access to the hub and suspension. Here's what I'm using for this job. M8 by 1.25 bolts, a new 12-point axle nut with an M22 thread, and a 30mm half-inch drive 12-point impact socket. I start by removing the cotter pin from the outer tie rod. Using a 17mm socket, I loosen the castle nut and tap the knuckle until the tie rod pops loose. I move it out of the way and reinstall the nut so it doesn't get lost. Next, I remove the wheel speed sensor using a 10mm socket and reinstall the bolt back into the steering knuckle. I turn the steering knuckle for better access and remove the brake caliper with a 17mm socket. I suspend the caliper so there's no stress on the brake hose. Using a 17mm wrench and a 6mm hex bit, I remove the sway bar link. Both front wheels need to be off the ground so there's no tension on the sway bar, which makes removal much easier. I unstake the axle nut with a punch and remove it using the 30mm socket. With the axle nut off, I remove the brake rotor. If the rotor is stuck, M8 by 1.25 bolts can be threaded in to help push it free. I tap the axle inward with a punch until it breaks loose from the hub. Underneath, I remove the connection between the steering knuckle and the lower control arm. That's two 17mm nuts and one 17mm bolt. I press down on the control arm to separate the knuckle. I don't push the CV axle all the way through, just enough space to remove the hub. Now I remove the 3 hub assembly bolts from the back, using a 19mm socket. With the bolts out, I bang and pull on the hub to break it loose. This part takes patience, don't give up. Eventually it comes free.
I'll go this way because you got a caliper that's going to be right here in this area right here. So this is like this.
I clean the steering knuckle, apply anti-seize to the new hub assembly, and install it. I reinstall the hub bolts, snug them down, and torque them to 96 foot-pounds. I turn the steering knuckle and reinsert the axle shaft. Next, I push down on the lower control arm and reconnect the steering knuckle. I torque the hardware to 66 foot-pounds. I apply anti-seize to the axle threads and install the new axle nut, tightening it snug for now.
Bruh.
I reinstall the brake rotor and use a lug nut to hold it in place. I reinstall the brake caliper, snug the bolts, and torque them to 80 foot-pounds.
Going to pop this back in so this doesn't turn while you're trying to torque your axle nut. Okay.
Now I torque the axle nut to 159 foot-pounds, using a screwdriver through the rotor to keep it from spinning. Once torqued, I stake the axle nut. I reinstall the sway bar link and torque it to 65 foot-pounds. Next, I reinstall the wheel speed sensor and tighten it down. I reinstall the tie rod castle nut and torque it to 55 foot-pounds. The cotter pin hole lines up perfectly every time. At least it does for me. Now I reinstall the wheel. To install the hubcap, I line up the round divot with the valve stem and tap it into place. And that's how I replace a front wheel bearing on a 2016 Toyota Prius.